Today's podcast episode is part 2 of the top 10 ways to maximize your podiatry practice valuation.
Welcome to the Tech Report podcast, where we help businesses survive, thrive, and create value.
Well, number 6 on our list is Dr. Productivity. And JR had a different viewpoint than I did, or I shouldn't say viewpoint. He had a different angle than I did. And I thought it was interesting. So JR, let's start with your angle and I'll talk about mine.
Okay. I talk about realistic care for Dr. Productivity. So when a new associate comes in, we know that they're not going to have the same productivity that someone who has been around for a number of years. And so it takes time to build that individual's practice up, although they're part of one big practice, so that the other doctors who are a little bit busier and need to send their overflow to somebody else, when that young person comes in, I can tell you that if they have a great bedside manner or a great manner with the folks and leave them feeling like they've been well taken care of and someone paid attention to them and handled their needs, that's just going to begin to grow and grow. And within a couple of years, they should be in that $500,000 range, because we know that they're going to be, the statistics show us that they're going to be in that $200,000 to maybe $300,000 range the first year in collections. But someone who's a good worker and willing to do the little things. How about be on call or stay a little later or take an extra patient instead of trying to get out early?
Yep.
That's how he's going to do the little things that are going to make him stand out or her stand out.
Yep, exactly. And JR, as you alluded to, somebody brand new, yeah, they're going to be taking a little bit of overflow from the more experienced podiatrists. Let's face it. I mean, that's just the way it works in any business. We get that. But if all of your podiatrists on staff are only bringing in $250,000 a year and you're paying out $150,000 in their salary, that only leaves a little bit. Plus, and then you got to pay all your other staff, your
support
overhead
staff. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it has to come from somewhere. It doesn't leave much left over. So, and the buyers know this, and they've watched this like a hawk, and they really. JR, there 500,000 is kind of that magic mark, isn't it, for podiatrists they like to see, isn't it?
Yes.
And there are there are definitely other podiatrists that get towards the 700,000-800,000, and they're phenomenal, and that's wonderful. Usually those are the owners, but not always. But the higher you keep this, again, it goes back to those financials, doesn't it?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Exactly. So I think the moral of the story and number 6 here, Dr. Productivity, is you have to have a way to track this, don't you, JR?
And most good practices do track that in order to help the doctors, and so that they get to see and they can compare themselves and see, because most of them are incentivized as well.
Yes.
And so when you begin to grow your collected revenue, you will begin to make more money. And who doesn't like to make more money? And so that's why they track these different things, so that they can use that as measuring points as to how to grow their business and how to make a little bit more money.
Sounds good. Okay, moving along. Number 7 on the list is owners bringing in the majority of income. Well, what's wrong with that, right? It's your business, right? You work hard. You probably work harder than anybody else because it's your business, right? JR, what's the red flag that pops up when they see a retiring podiatrist who's bringing in 80% of the revenue? What goes through the owner's mind when they see that?
A drop in revenue when that person leaves.
Exactly.
And you can't have one person bring in that amount of revenue, because there's a challenge. You never know what catastrophe might strike. You hope never a catastrophe strikes, or a catastrophe does not strike, but you just don't know. And it's like only one source of income. The more revenue streams you have, the better you have of having overcoming a rainy day or a problem. But if you have one person do that, it's a challenge and it's difficult to overcome. And so they try to spread that out. Of course, some are going to do more than others. We know that. But when it's to that severity, that's kind of a challenge. And no one wants that. That's a risk. Because if someone's going to pay millions of dollars for a practice and not have an avenue to recoup their investment, no one's going to get an investment like that. You wouldn't do that in the stock market. And it's the same thing here.
Yep, exactly. And again, it comes down to, once again, our very first thing on there, scalability of your business. If you're the podiatrist, you're doing all the work and you're the one who wants to retire. Personally, as an investor, I am not going to pay you very much because I know that I'm going to have to go in and dive in. I'm going to have to get somebody who is going to take up some of the slack of you leaving. Well, that's a lot of work for me. That's a lot of work. My investment dollars are going to have to go towards stuff that I'm not going to get a return for. It's just getting back to where we should be.
Well,
so,
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to add one thing to that. When you say they're not going to want to pay much, they're willing to pay. Don't get me wrong, because there is some value
Right.
there. You're just not going to get the top like you'd like. And our job is to help you get the top. And we can do that. So what we do is we try to coach. Not we don't try to. We coach folks and help
Right.
them. And we've had to tell them it's better to wait a year and put these things in place so you can make sure that you can get your maximum value. This year is kind of tough because we know the capital gains tax is going to increase significantly. And it's a really big challenge. And someone, if they wait, is going to take a big hit in the capital gains tax down the road. But we can talk about that later. But that's
and
a
we don't
challenge.
we don't know what that is yet, but we know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. It's not.
Yes.
It's no surprise. So yeah, so you kind of have to wait. There's a lot of things, and that's why I think having a good advisor to help you with that's where we come in. But sometimes you have to weigh out. Nobody's going to be perfect in all 10 of these, are they?
No. Nobody's perfect.
No, exactly. So, okay.
You're as close as there was in the golf business, so I'll tell you that.
There we go. Well, okay. Well, let's keep on moving along here. But number eight. Nobody's perfect, right? Depth of management and having key staff members in the right areas. And we kind of already talked about this a little bit earlier. But again, JR, would you agree with this, that if you have a good staff in place that's got all the business side of it that's running smoothly versus you doing it all yourself as the practice owner, as a buyer, which one am I going to spend more money on?
Surely not the Lone Ranger who's trying to do everything himself.
Exactly.
It's not sustainable to do that over a long period of time. And you're looking for sustainability.
That, and you're tired all the time anyhow, right? You don't have a life. You're working too much.
Sure. And then you get wore out, and then your productivity goes down.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really what's attractive to a lot of these practice owners, is to find a partner, not to sell out 100%, but to find a partner who can help them with some of these back office items that will give them a little bit of free time, because people are now realizing it, and business owners as well as the doctors are realizing they want to have a life and they don't want to be married to something that's going to take them 10, 20 hours a day, and they don't get to see their kids grow up, or they don't get to see their grandkids, or get to enjoy the time with their wife. Exactly. Things are changing.
Yep.
You need to be more efficient, I guess what it boils down to.
Yep, exactly. And buyers are willing to pay more of a premium for those businesses that understand that. Not just understand it, but they've done it. So good point. Okay, so number 9 on our list, we're getting down there. The business is growing, financials. So maybe it's a little bit of surprising that we put this on the 9th most important thing. And I'm sure if you may have been wondering, well, why did you just wait to talk about the financials till almost the end here? You shouldn't. Isn't this the most important thing, right? So obviously it's very important to have good financials, but we just want to make sure you understand there's a lot of things the buyers look for that's not just the income statement, but it's the story behind it. And that's what's going to let them, if you do all these things until we get up to here, number 9, your income statement is going to be much better anyhow.
Exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. So, but let's talk about why it's so important to show your business is growing. JR, your thoughts there?
Because you're not stagnant.
And why is that important? Why is that important? If I'm selling my business, what should they care if I'm growing or not? I just want to sell the thing.
Brad, if you're standing still, you're getting passed up. Anybody who sits still is getting passed by somebody else. Nobody wants that. They're out there to try to improve. And so there are some areas that we all know that we can improve. So with the right help, they can capitalize and maximize in an area that they may not be good. I mean, we'd all like to think we're great at everything, but we just can't be. We can be proficient and good, but I'm an expert at 3 things and I'm not an expert in everything. So why not inquire and get the experts who can help me in those areas, which is what happens in M&A, but they're really looking for long-term viability too.
And what's the most important thing that most of the buyers are looking for? Is it your last 5 years? Is it last 10 years? The last 30 days? What do they really look for?
They'd like to see a trailing 12 months, first of all, that is solid. Then they want to look at the 3 years or 2 years before that. So they have a 3-year, and they'd like to see a gradual increase.
Right.
They'd prefer not to see the bell curves going up and down. Of course, we've had that a little bit with our COVID, but
Yes.
that has begun to enhance people's businesses because that little bit of a slowdown has really made people's businesses take off. And when they begin to check a business and they see that now, and they see it on the uptick, that's really attractive.
That's a good
Even
sign.
If it's a little smaller, it's attractive. And of course, that means your EBITDA is going up. Your top line collected revenue is going up. That means you're doing the right things with Medicare, and your accounts receivable is minimal.
Exactly. And for those who, we're assuming that everybody knows what EBITDA is. JR, take a couple seconds just to explain what is EBITDA, and why is that so important now that we're to the financials where everybody looks at. So tell us a little bit about why buyers pay attention to EBITDA and what is it?
Well, that's the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Your accountant, I'm not an expert at that because I had an accountant in my business who helped me with that. I should definitely understand it, obviously, and I know how you get there, and it's your net profit, simply put. And so your accountant who's an expert in that is going to help you get to that particular point. And so that's what these folks, your private equities and your folks that are looking to partner with you, that's what they're looking to see. They want to see what your top line collected revenue is. And normal is a 20, maybe 25%. Anything less than 20 is a little low. And if you start getting above 30 or above, then they're wondering, are you billing properly? Are you coding properly? Are you doing the right things? And so that 20 to 30% is the norm. 20 to 25% is closer to the norm. And if you are in that range, and you don't have a heavy accounts receivable, then they know you're doing some things right, and they can see that that's you understand, and you have maybe key staff that are there to help you, or are already there to help you.
So what you're saying is all those items 1 through 8, if you have those down, then your EBITDA should be 20 to even 30%. Is that what you're saying? Of your top line revenue, collected revenue. There's a difference between top line revenue and collected.
That's your profit.
Exactly.
And it's normally that 20 to 25%. And if it's at 30, that's good. Then
you're a rock star.
You know how to streamline your business properly, and you have the key people in the right places.
Exactly. And just to go over again, if I'm at a 10% EBITDA, and somebody else is at a 30% EBITDA, but we both do 3 million in sales, which one are they going to pay more for?
Well, that's obvious.
That's a loaded question. I get it.
Yeah, that's obvious.
You didn't even really have to answer that, right? Okay, everybody just listening, that's a duh.
However, what is attractive about the one who has a little less, with the right help, they can figure out where the problems are. If they're having that much collected revenue, that level, then they know how to fix that and increase that. And that too can be attractive.
It can be attractive, yes, but is it attractive to sell your business at a 10%, or is it attractive for a buyer who wants to get a bargain?
For a buyer who wants to get a bargain.
Yeah, and do you want to be that seller that the buyers are looking at you like, ooh,
well,
I can get this one cheap. Do you want to be that one?
Yeah, but you brought something up a little bit ago. There's a story sometimes, and that's where the merger and acquisition team and the expert can help with that, because there's a reason why maybe it's at 10%. Here's why. We had a lot of one-time expenses this year for growth purposes. We had some additional ancillary services that we've added. And so there's a reason why you're at 10%, because you didn't go into debt. You took money out of your cash flow to go pay for that. And so you'll see some of those things. So sometimes there are some answers. And with the right person who can help you tell that story,
exactly,
it can still be attractive, and it doesn't have to have the negative connotation that we may have brought up here, because not everything is negative, because sometimes there are definite answers for reasons why. And we have some clients who are already like that, and it's been to their advantage.
Exactly. And you brought up a very good point. I'm glad you did, because this is important. Because as a business owner in my former businesses, my goal income-wise was not to show the greatest income of all time. I wanted to, my goal was actually to break even on the income statement. And the reason I wrote off legally, of course, I'm not saying don't do things illegal. Okay. But your accountant can help you with this. Write off as much as you possibly can legally, because you don't want to pay taxes on stuff that you don't have to, right? But that does go with the EBITDA, it drops the EBITDA. But JR, what are some of the things that, let's say, we would do though to tell that story and get the adjustments? How can we make adjustments to make the EBITDA so you don't have to be penalized by doing things legally and maximizing your tax or minimizing your taxes?
Well, most people, most doctors will understand this, and most business owners will, but you have what they call add backs. Right. And so you have a lot of one-time expenses and things that you're allowed legally. So a business vehicle, business insurance, education that you may have to go take somewhere that you're going to put in along with a vacation or something like that. As long as you're there for 3 days, you might as well stay the 4th day or something like that. There's a lot of those expenses, one-time expenses, or things that are called add backs that that are legal, that you can add back. And if you're got a good accountant, he's helping to minimize your taxes, because we all want to pay as little as possible, but pay what's appropriate.
Exactly. And there's a happy medium in there, but I think you hit it right on the head. Part of the job of what we do is to look at those financials, and we start asking the questions that the buyers are going to ask. And before we do anything to present anything to any buyer, we start asking those questions, and we say, what happened here? What happened there? What happened here? No wrong answers. We just want to know what the story, the narrative is, so that we can get the buyers to understand, and they don't penalize you and the value of your business, right?
Correct.
Okay, awesome.
You hit the nail right on the head.
And
I was
gonna say, this is where our analysts come in, and this is like having an agent. JR, you mentioned this about, Scherzer, his agent. We're that agent, and we're the ones that are going to say, "Whoa, hang on, don't take that offer. Don't even go there yet. Give us a chance. Hang on a second, because we can do better."
A good M&A, just like an agent, is worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
And we have a partner, Sonny Crumpler, who on more than one occasion has told people that's a bad offer, don't take it.
And they
And
thought it was a good offer, didn't they?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, they think all we want is a commission. No, because if you do what's right by somebody else, you'll always get your due down the road. And
Yep.
I can think on 2 occasions he's told somebody, don't take it, wait 6 months or a year. And they actually ended up getting more and are real appreciative. And actually, they are references for us, as everybody is, and will say how honest he was and the integrity they had by telling me, don't take the offer now.
Right.
And it got better. So, but if you're not an expert in that, you don't necessarily know that it's good, bad, or indifferent. It may sound good until you see all the hair that's on it, and then you say, well, I don't think I like that. But anyway,
Exactly. It's kind of like you alluded to earlier, have the podiatrist who has the good bedside manner and educates the patients while they're in there and do the right thing. Not necessarily you're trying to, gouge them and try and get as much money as you can out of them, because that's a whole nother issue here. But doing what's right and making sure that they understand, they know what's right. All of a sudden they blab and you have referrals that come to you. That doesn't cost you anything, does it? All right, number 10. We finally got to the last one here. And what's that saying go? We save the best for the last, or something like that. Potential for new markets. And this one, a lot of sellers are asking, why on earth is this a big deal? I mean, come on. They're just buying our business. Why is it so important that we show there's potential? Well, if there's that much potential, why wouldn't we just do it ourselves, right? So, JR, why do you think this is so important and buyers are wanting to make sure that there's potential for new markets before they invest money in your business?
Nobody wants to be strapped where they can't move around, because then how do you grow? Yeah. So you want to grow and continually grow and get a little bit bigger and make it a viable business long term, because if you're not growing, you're getting passed by. And so when these buyers or anybody who's interested in partnering with somebody, they want to see where they can add and see where there's some continuity.
Right.
Because they're not really trying to change a culture. They're just trying to grow a business. And if they're hoping that whoever they partner with is going to be a good facilitator of that, and know that they're not trying to take over and change a culture. They're not trying to say, see, we don't want your opinion anymore. We don't care. What areas can we help you in that are lacking, that we could let you use your strength to improve what you have? And a lot of these folks, as you can imagine, these doctors and business owners have relationships and friends. And when they have a good experience, now they have another avenue that they can help and bring somebody else on board and somebody else on board. And the biggest, I just have to say, there's one misnomer. Just because you're going to sell a part of your practice doesn't mean you lose complete control and someone's going to throw you out and just abuse you as a worker. It doesn't work that way, because the whole reason they're interested in you in the first place is because of what you've built. So they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to change the name on the business. They don't want you to change your shirt colors and name tags. They want it to continue to grow. And what can I do to help you?
Yep, exactly. Well, wow. Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. So just before we end the episode here today, and JR, what's something that maybe we haven't talked about yet, but you feel is extremely important for podiatrists, or really any business, I guess, out there, that, to help them maximize the value of their business?
One, they have to be more open-minded. I'll just tell you that from conversations. There's more than one way to do things, and other people have good ideas. I know we didn't talk about this, and you might be able to add something to it as well, but 80% of what you know is from somebody else. 20% from what you have on your own. So if you're open to listening, you never know what you're going to learn. So never be too busy. That's key. I'm sure there's some others that are slipping my mind, and maybe you may be able to help recall them from our conversation, but um, you chime in and
Well,
share your thoughts.
I think JR, I think you hit it on the head. I think the biggest takeaway, I guess I would recommend as being part of the M&A process is, we've alluded to it before, but I said it before, there's a quote: a person who represents themselves has a fool for a client. Abraham Lincoln mentioned that. There's a reason he did. I know that's kind of pertaining to law, but it also pertains to really a lot of things. And somebody who goes in or doesn't go in to see a podiatrist and they're walking around with heel pain, they're not, yes, they can go to the local grocery store and get some, off the shelves inserts and throw them in there. We all know what the result is. They're going to come to see you at some point. That's like them doing it themselves. There's pain involved even after they try and fix it themselves. But why not just go to somebody who really, really knows, been there, they've done that so many times. They know all the ins and outs. They know the questions to ask. That's the same thing. So I think if you don't get anything else out of today, understand you do not have, selling your business is not an individual sport. It is a team activity. And you have to align yourself with the right advisors that you feel comfortable with. And that's how you get your best results moving forward. JR, do you agree with that?
Yes, I would add one other thing, and that is.
Hang on a second. I said the one more. You can't add anything more. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
The one thing that I would add is that these potential partners are only looking for ways to help you become more successful. And there's a lot of folks that are very successful in their practices because they've done a lot of things the right way. But they want to go to another level because they've got that knowledge and that skill set that they can get them from 8 doctors to 16 doctors,
right,
to 8 locations from 4. And with the right partners, and those partners like those types of practices because they don't have to oversee and they don't have to be the parent telling them what to do because they've found the right person or the right group who knows how to get it done. That's another attractive. And sometimes when you try to communicate with practice owners, doctors, sometimes they think that someone just wants to buy them and move them out when really they don't. And if they stopped and gave us the time and listened, they would be pleasantly surprised and say,
"Yep,
oh, that's way different than I thought."
Yes.
And exactly. I try to enlighten, with as many people as I can to let them know that it isn't as you always assume. There's many more ways to do things.
Oh, you got it. So, well, there you go. We've got the top 10 questions answered that every podiatrist should consider when either selling or partnering or merging with a partner. So I'm Brad Stoller, and I just want to thank JR for spending some time with us here today to go over these critical questions. And I really hope these questions are going to help you, get in the mindset. Whether you're thinking about selling or merging today, use this episode to kind of, get yourself and your practice in the right mindset, if you will, so you can plan on the future. If you're ready to sell today, let's go through the list. Talk to us now. Do it. You cannot talk soon enough to have that plan put in place. So that's pretty much it. JR, thanks. And any questions, just reach out to us, and we're always happy to help. So JR, Brad signing out. Goodbye, everybody.